I'm into this one. I'm into politicking. With Gavin Newsome, Marshawn Lynch, and Doug Hendrickson. First of all, I can't believe they got Marshawn Lynch to sign up to do a podcast. That's unbelievable in itself. But Doug Hendrickson, longtime sports agent in the NFL with the Wasserman Group, he's been awesome. Good friend of the program. Max Crosby, Cam Jordan, Kenny Clark, among others that he's helped lead as an agent. He's done this for a long, long time. Doug Hendrickson joins the Morning Roast here, courtesy of the River Islands guest line here on the Morning Roast. Sam Lubman, Bonte Hill, Sam Lubman in for Joe Shasky. Doug, what is happening, my man? Congratulations on the podcast.
Thanks, Bonte. I appreciate it, man. It's been a fun ride, but first of all, congrats to your show, man. You guys have been killing it for a long time. And look, I told you before, but I appreciate your grind coming where you came from and where you're at now, man. So I appreciate what you've done and the hustle you've had, man. So much love to you, and thanks for having me on.
I appreciate the kind words, Doug. Executive Vice President of Wasserman, and hopefully you're at Fight Night this year at the Olympic Club of Politicking. So how'd you get – look, you got Gavin Newsome, and you got Marshawn Lynch. You got two heavyweights here. So take us behind the scenes of forming this podcast. Who came up with the concept? Who came up with the idea? And how'd you get these two heavyweights and Gavin Newsome and Marshawn Lynch to sign up and do a pod with you?
I know it's funny. So the guy that says, I'm just here so I won't get fined now is a national podcast. But so as you know, Marshawn's been my client since 2006 out of Cal. I've had him my whole career. And, Gavin's one of my longest, closest friends. So literally about 6 months ago, Gavin called me late night around midnight and said, hey, man, I got a great idea. I said, what? He said, let's do a podcast. I said, come on, man. Don't what are you talking about? I hung up on him. Called me the next day. He said, no, let's do a podcast, me, you, and Marshawn. And so, for people who don't know, Gavin and Marshawn are also very close. And, he helped out with Marshawn back in the day with some stuff with Goodell back to 2008. And, Gavin's been a big believer in Oakland and what Marshawn's done and all that, his career. So we decided let's all do this thing together. And so then I go to Marshawn. He says, come on, man, really? And he didn't really believe it either. And then after about 5-6 months, we decided to get a podcast going, and the name Politicking came from Marshawn. Marshawn's like, listen, where I came from, we politic. He said, forget politics. We politic on everything, life, sports, women, business, whatever. So let's name it Politicking. And so we said, great, brilliant. And here we are on iHeartRadio doing Politicking.
No, I love it, man. I love the clip we just played talking about the Beastquake 2 and some of the things after the Super Bowl and how Gavin has the Super Bowl hat. And Marshawn's just a treat. He's just a joy. And you talk about players and dealing with Marshawn Lynch, and I think he was misunderstood for so long. Of course, Oakland, California, Oakland Tech. He goes to Cal. He's on the golf cart after a game, and he goes to Buffalo. And he does it to Buffalo. Then he goes to Seattle, and really was one of the heart and souls. We're talking about leaders, right, of this 49ers team. Who's a leader? McCaffrey, Purdy, Warner, and all that stuff. We brought up the Legion of Boom. And one name we didn't bring up was Marshawn Lynch. But now that I think about it, Doug, he had to be one of the leaders of that offense. And maybe not so much the rah-rah guy, but with the way he played, he led by his actions, by just running through people's faces, running through people, trucking guys left and right. He had to be one of the leaders of that Seahawks Super Bowl team. Right, Doug?
Well, look, I mean, without a doubt, no question. And look, this is no knock on Russell Wilson, but during that heyday of Seattle, if you put Marshawn on the 20-yard line and Russell on the 30-yard line and say, go line up who's the leader, who you want to line up, everybody goes to Marshawn. I mean, without question, he was not only the heart and soul of that team, the locker room, but also, really brought that franchise back. Remember when John Schneider traded for Pete Carroll from Buffalo, they knew they were getting a good player, but they didn't really realize what they were getting. Marshawn changed the dynamic of that team. He brought toughness there. He brought the identity there. And that really turned that team around and arguably, should have been back-to-back Super Bowls, should have been probably the third one after that if things didn't unravel. But without question, he was by far and away the guy that led by example, was not the rah-rah guy that, hey, come on, guys, let's get him up. No, he led by example, pounding people, throwing people to the ground. And without question, that team lived and died with beast mode.
Hey, look, you don't have to reveal this, Doug, and I understand because you're a close relationship with Marshawn Lynch, but when I watched that Super Bowl and they didn't give the ball to him at the 1-yard line, I'm thinking to myself, you got one of the greatest goal line backs, not just today's game, but in NFL history. Like, I put Marshawn Lynch in there in the category with Earl Campbell, Walter Payton at the goal line. They're sniffing the goal line. They're right there. They're getting into that end zone. Does Marshawn ever discuss that with you? Does he ever show resentment about that play? Because it seems like he doesn't on the outside here from afar, but does he ever just like, man, Doug, I just wish I got that ball down there in Glendale, Arizona against the Patriots?
Well, what's funny, he does, and I don't want to leave a cliffhanger here, but on the next episode of Politicking, we get into that Super Bowl week.
Oh, I love it.
And we discuss that at length. And so you'll tune in and hear it. But no, we go in depth about that week. We go in depth about, the week of the I'm just here so I won't get fined press conference and everything else. So it's very, very detailed and deep. But no, he goes into detail. And trust me, I was right there with him, greeting him when he walked out of that locker room. And you'll hear all about that stuff next week. But it's pretty powerful.
So obviously, Doug, we got our eyes really focused here on with the Niners, what's going on with Brandon Ayuk and him holding in. We're seeing Trent; he's holding out, not reporting to training camp right now as they seek bigger contracts. But I'm curious with you as an agent who's worked with players through these hold-in exercises here. When you're working with these players, what's kind of going through their mind during this whole process, especially when they're away from the team? Not working out with their guys. Like, what is the mindset of an athlete like when they are not reporting to training camp as they seek a better contract situation?
Well, it's interesting. I think you have two guys. I think Trent probably is like, look, man, if I miss a month, who cares? He's in year, 15, 16, 14. And it's almost like big deal. I've been there, done it, and whatnot. I think with Ayuk, it's probably a little different. But I think the hardest part for any agent is really not doing the deal. The hardest part is navigating the client, meaning, you got to know going in, if I'm trying to get X amount for Ayuk, can I get it? Is it reasonable to get it? Am I going to get there? And what are you telling the client? And so a lot of the battle here is, navigating the client, the family in terms of where it's going to be and what you might get. I mean, like Marshawn told me back in the day, look, don't come at me crooked, come at me, don't come at me sideways, shoot me straight, meaning that you got to know kind of where things stand. And so if you're telling Ayuk as the agent, hey, I'm going to get you Justin Jefferson money, and you can't get it, well, then you got a problem. And so, the question is, what are they trying to get? Is it reasonable to get that or not? And if it is, then great. Then you hold out and you do what you got to do. But you got to look at all the different aspects and figure out, really where are we at with the team? What's reasonable to get? And is the holdout worth it or not worth it? Because at some point, the end might come and you might have nothing to show for it. And so you really got to navigate this process and really be with the player to help them out. I've had a lot of holdouts in my career, but you really got to be patient with them, but more importantly, tell them the truth and let them know what's going on in the process.
Doug Hendrickson, longtime agent with the Washington Group, Marshawn Lynch, Cam Jordan, many others, Max Crosby. He's done this for a long, long time, joining us here on the Morning Roast on the River Islands guest line. So with Ayuk right now, what's your client? You're telling them straight. How's that relationship with the front office? What are those phone calls like? How many times a day do you think, were you calling the front office a day when your player's holding out, Doug? How many times a day? What are those conversations like?
Well, you got to be tactful because you call too much, you're going to be like, hey, look, man, this guy really wants to come in. So you got to be kind of tactful with it. I back in my day, I had Michael Bennett holding out, and I went to the facility unannounced one day, and I sat in the lobby. And I know Pete and John very, very well, better than anybody probably. And I went in there unannounced, and I told the receptionist, I said, hey, I'm here to see Coach and John. They said, do you have a meeting? I said, no, I don't. And they said, well, you might have to wait. I said, fine. I waited there 5 hours when I redid Michael Bennett's deal when he was holding out.
Wow.
So sometimes you got to be tactful. Sometimes you got to, come at them hard. Sometimes you got to lay in the weeds and let them think, hey, if Brandon doesn't come in, can we win without him? And so as an agent, you got to really think 2 steps ahead as far as, are they missing him? Are they not? What if we don't come in? And all those things. So it kind of depends on the situation, the pulse, depends on the team and all that. And I look, I know the Niners want to win. They need him to win. The question is, how long can either side go before they get some resolution? Obviously, he's under contract, so he can't not play and whatnot. But as an agent, you got to really size up the team and know their owners and know the GMs very, very well to know what buttons to push and win.
Obviously, it's a new day and age, right, with social media, Instagram, Twitter. How do you advise your client on how to navigate through those social media wars? Because we see Ayuk on social media, he's dancing, he's doing things, and the fans will say, oh, man, what is he doing on social media? You're being immature or whatnot. What is an agent say? What do you say to your clients when it comes to the social media and how to handle that?
I tell them to stay off it because here's the deal. Like, when players unfollow teams, it's like, come on, this is not third grade. Like, really, you can unfollow a team? To me, that's childish. I just tell them to stay off it because even after a game, if a guy's a bad game, they get obliterated by fans. So to me, the social media aspect, stay off it. You don't need to get on it. Let the agent handle the negotiations, the team. But, with social media, 9 times out of 10, something bad's going to happen on there that's going to leave a bad taste in somebody's mouth. So stay off it for that time period. Clear it, let it go. Whatever you want to delete it, just don't look at it, but don't go on there and try to make a statement on social media about a contract or this and that. It's never a good look.
So there's the old phrase, it's nothing personal, it's just business. But I believe, over the summer, Brandon Ayuk said it was kind of hard not to take this personal. How do you coach your clients to not take these negotiations personally and kind of remind them that, this isn't about who you are as a person. This is strictly just how this business works. How do you kind of keep them from feeling like they're being personally slighted here during these negotiations?
Well, it's funny, and that's a great question because, that's why it's hard for players. Some players represent themselves, and it's very hard because the hard truth is what you hear when you talk to owners and GMs about a certain player, this and that, or, hey, you're not as good as this player. So I always say, listen, it's a blessing to be in the league, number one. It's a blessing to get an offer. An offer is an offer. So it's a blessing to have an offer. It might not be the right offer, but an agent's job is to push the team as far as they're willing to go. So once you get the offer, then it's my job or any agent's job to say, okay, listen, my job is to push it as far as we're willing to go until the team says we're not moving and we're done. And then the player's got to make a decision. And so, my job is really just edify them and educate them that, listen, don't get caught up in the emotions because, an offer might start really low, but it might end really high. All teams do things differently. So it's more about, look, taking the emotion out. It's a blessing to even be where you're at. It's a blessing to get the offer. Now it's my job to now go create and get the market for you that you deserve and you should get. Now, does everybody get it every time? No, they don't. And that's why some players don't take deals. Some players get franchised. Some players go to free agency. So it's about knowing the landscape, knowing the team, knowing the league in terms of where the market is and what could happen with Ayuk down the road. If he plays the deal out, how much can he get elsewhere in free agency? Will they tag him? What are they willing to do right now? Are you better off taking a deal now than waiting? How much more can you get? All these things come into play. So you really got to sit down, whiteboard things to clients to educate them fully on the entire landscape of this business.
And it's got to be scary because if Ayuk does hit the practice field without a new deal and say he gets injured, because it can't happen. We see injuries in training camp all the time that'll wipe out your season. How deflating is that for an agent? Has that ever happened to you where you had a client seeking new money and then he gets hurt in camp and then all of a sudden you look at that money, it's just getting flushed down the toilet?
100%. I had a player one time that I'd never forget. He was going to be the third highest paid corner in the league, and he wanted more, and I'm like, this is a phenomenal deal, and he can't risk taking it. And I go out there, and this is before we had I think it was before internet, it was like in the 2000s. I whiteboarded the whole deal, and I said, if you don't take the deal, here's what you have to do to make up for the deal. Anyways, he takes the deal. A week later, tears his Achilles.
Oh.
The next year, tears it again. So he never would have gotten paid if he didn't do it. But yes, I've had players that have turned down deals and have gotten hurt and never got paid again. So, what fans have to understand, Bonte, is that this is not baseball. Mm-hmm. The second baseman in baseball might hit 260. Next year might hit 253. Still going to get the same deal. Football is a brutal sport. So if you get one injury or a severe one, you might not get paid again. So when fans say, hey, you should play this and that, look, this is a brutal, brutal game. And the reason the ratings are so high and the league's so powerful is because all these fans want to see these hits and the gladiators that these guys are, so they have to get their money. And so then it comes down to, okay, where can you go? What's the money going to be and all that? But it is scary as an agent for sure to sit there and if you turn down a big deal, every single Sunday you're like, oh, God, did this guy get hurt? What happened? It's not a good feeling.
Yeah, I'm always pro player, Doug. I'm always, especially in the NFL. You got the $1 billion business and the owners making in money and the money's flying around in this league. Now, I'm always pro player, man. Go get your money. But I got to ask you, Doug, because, Sam and I were talking between the breaks. We're like, you see all these movies, right? Jerry Maguire, and you see Draft Day, and you see agents pitching. Guy like Marshawn Lynch, for example. How did you pitch to him to join you in Wasserman? What is your pitch like? What is an agent's pitch to a client when they're coming out of college or if they're looking for a new agent in the middle of their career? Take us through that, Doug.
Well, it's funny. Back to Marshawn. It's funny. Back then, I cold called Marshawn. He was a Cal in 2006. And I told him, I said, hey, man, do you want to go see Snoop? And he said, I'd love to see Snoop. So I had him come to the city. In fact, we met at the Westin on Market Street. He played right there at the Fillmore. And Marshawn comes with probably 20 of his crew, and we meet Snoop after the show. And I've known Snoop for a long time. And he told Marshawn after the show, he said, "Hey man, this white guy here, you can trust him. He's family to me." And that's how I got Marshawn. But that was the story for him. But nowadays, it's like what I tell players: listen, it's a personal service business. You got to have someone who has the ability to call every owner, every general manager, get them on the phone, and be able to do the job for you. Everything's changed now with social media and marketing and things like that. I get it. But the inevitable thing has never changed in regards to these players need someone they can trust, guide them, look out for them with integrity and reputation to handle their career the right way. And that's my selling point to them. Listen, nobody knows the decision makers better than me. So you come with me, I'll be able to talk to owners, the GMs, get you drafted higher, position you better for your contract, and look out for you down the road when you're done playing ball. Because that's when the cameras stop and the checks start coming in. That's when you have to be there for these guys 10, 20, 30 years down the road. And that's the mark of a good agent, in my opinion.
So earlier, a little while ago, when we were talking, you kind of mentioned how, part of an agent's job is they kind of need to be realistic in terms of what deal they can get a player. Like, you're not going to say, I can get you Justin Jefferson money to a guy who isn't worth Justin Jefferson money. But I'm curious on the other side of it, if you got a player who's coming to you saying, I want Justin Jefferson money, but they aren't, good enough to get Justin Jefferson money, how difficult is that conversation for an agent with a client to kind of say, like, listen, I love your confidence that you think that you're this good, but you're not on that level. Like, what is that conversation like?
It's tough, and that's part of navigating the client. You got to be real and honest with them. You say, listen, don't shoot the messenger, but you're not looked upon at that level. And this isn't me talking. Like, I'm not a football guy, so I'm talking to people around the league, and you're not at that level. Now, if you play another year and you do what you got to do, and you hit and you're free agent, then you know what? Maybe you could. But right now, you're not at that level. You're not going to demand that kind of money. And so you just got to be real and honest with them, because what a lot of agents want to do is they say, oh, yeah, you're worth $35 a year, da-da-da, and then the team doesn't want to give them the money. Then what agents do is say, oh, the team's screwing you. They don't think you're worth it. You're the whole thing. And then they turn the team against the player. So, I always want to be honest and go through the front door and just say, listen, I hear you. I get it. But you're not looked upon in that level right now. Or some guys are never looked upon that level. You just got to be brutally honest with them. And if you have that kind of relationship, which an agent should have with a player, then they got to be able to take that in and respect it and know that they hired the agent for a reason, to be honest and forthright with them. And that's what you hope you have in your client.
Well, this is why you're one of the best agents in the business, Doug, with all that insight right there. A lot of good stuff there. Politicking the Podcast with Marshawn Lynch and Gavin Newsome and Doug Hendrickson. It's really, really good. I can't wait for the next episode. I've tapped into both. Yeah, Draymond Green, our great friend here on the podcast. He's on every podcast, so I probably wasn't a hard kid, man. Draymond's been on everything this past summer, but that was a lot of fun. Him and Marshawn are boys as well. By the way, you bring up Snoop Dogg. I mean, who lives a better life than Snoop Dogg? You see him at the Olympics. He's doing everything. He's fencing. He's swimming. He's doing everything.
He's the best, man. I've known him for 30 years, and look, him and Marshawn are very similar. They do things their way. They love life. There's no BS to them. They don't conform to what people want them to be or do, and they just kind of do it. And they've lived it life, and we always say we're on borrowed time, Bronte.
Yep.
And we have quality time remaining, so we might as well live life, have fun, enjoy it. And do some good things along the way. And certainly Snoop has, Draymond has, and Marshawn has as well. So it's fun to see all those guys excelling.
Well, I see you at Fight Night next month at the Olympic Club.
I will be there, man. I will be. Look forward to seeing you.
Absolutely. Doug, hey, man, we're going to do this again, man. Really good insight. Our audience loves it. It's great to get a perspective. I don't think we've ever done this, Sam, having an agent on the show to give that perspective of what's going on here, but taking our fans behind the scenes of your perspective, because, a lot of people think agents are bad guys or whatnot. Oh, man, these guys are blah, 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 blah. By the way, Laura Wakefield says, what's up, Doug? She says you're a longtime neighbor. So, Laura Wakefield down there in Stanford.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Doug. Great stuff, man. We'll do it again soon, brother. See you soon, man.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it, man.
Anytime. Doug Hendrickson here on the Morning Roast, Politicking Podcast with Marshawn Lynch and Gavin Newsome. Wow, that was a lot of fun. There was a lot of good insight going behind the scenes of what it's like with an agent and his client, his advice to guys like Brendan Ayuk. He's been through the situation before. A lot of good stuff there. A lot of good stuff.
No, it's actually